So here we are in New Jersey with Rabbi Henry Harris. And Henry, it's been lovely to chat with you and to find out a bit more about your experience with the three principles. So tell me, how has it impacted your life?
That's a great question, and it's nice to even just be able to reflect on that, because it's yeah, I mean, in so many ways. I think on the simplest level, just the appreciation that I could it could feel that life is a certain way, and that there's a difficulty or there's a challenge or some kind of significant thing going on. But then that I could kind of, be gently reminded that, this is not personal. Just it's just so refreshing and so invigorating to kind of be reminded of the fact that there's so much of the human experience that's not personal, and that it's not necessary to. It's just not necessary to get troubled by things that are kind of flowing through. That's really been, I would say, a big blessing.
And that sounds really intriguing. And what do you mean by not personal? How does that sort of translate?
Well, I guess the way an example might be that if I'm fortunate to be married to a wonderful woman who, despite her wonderful nature, wouldn't stop her from being what looked like to be a source of frustration at times, or even if just the dynamic between the two of us could feel difficult or troubled, then we might get upset at one another, and then I might walk away from that interaction feeling troubled by the troubled interaction. What does this say about me, or what does it say about our marriage? And then I would start to be concerned about what am I going to do about that. And I wouldn't necessarily notice, but in the process of being sincerely, innocently concerned about doing better, I would kind of, I'd be working in a bit of a discouraged, state of mind, and not noticing it, I would just kind of go a little bit further into the discouragement. And now it just looks to me I'm more aware of the fact that it really isn't so much a testimony to how I'm doing as a husband, or how my marriage is doing if we kind of get at odds with one another. It just more is a bit of an indication of the fact that that's what human beings do at times, is that we get insecure, and there's a wonderful humility that is good. It's a good thing to recognize that's part of humility, to realize that I can perform kind of not so well, and it's not really personal. That's, interestingly enough, it's not. It might sound like it's kind of maybe absolving myself of responsibility, like, oh, well, I'm not doing well in the marriage, so I just attribute it to the human experience of going up and down. But I find that when I have more understanding for that, and when I have more understanding that for myself and then for others, I find that, fascinatingly, I end up bouncing back much more easily, and much more, I just bounce back better.
And that's what I hear with people who talk about the principles is that, and it can be a bit frustrating, I think, for those people that are kind of new to the principles. There's nothing to do, but there's something about when you have an understanding that things they look a bit different. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. You're I think I'm just more aware that there's a place to look other than my own kind of feelings and state of mind as the reality of life. That's really what it's meant to me, is that there's just a different place to look at. I'm a little less compelled by what I'm feeling in the moment, as I used to be, and that being less compelled. I mean, there's so many. I think everybody knows this intuitively, that when they don't necessarily know how to take their mind off of we don't know how necessarily to take our mind off of the kind of urgent, compelling feelings that we're having, but we know intuitively that that being able to do that is going to help. So what these principles are really helping people realize is just that's the overall orientation, the overall direction to look in, and it's going to happen that we're going to see that. That's how I talk to people about it.
So what's happening here in New Jersey and New York? What are you involved with? And if people are interested in the three principles and your work, how can they find out about what you're doing? So what are you doing, first of all, and how can people find out about it?
Well, so I'm involved in a number of things. I organize larger events in the community. So we have, in the New York area, we have an annual conference that features about 15 speakers from around the world. And so people come, and it's a 3-day conference, and there's all kinds of offerings and themes over the 3 days. And when we do seminars where I bring in guests to speak. So in another 2 months, we'll be having Dr. Bill and Dr. Linda Pettit come into New York City for a 2-day seminar. And then I'll do some webinars. So I organize programs. I also teach personally a weekly class in New Jersey, and then I do periodic teachings online as well as in Manhattan. And I work with individuals and couples and kids and things like that. So it's a variety of stuff. I have a website, so if people go to jewishcenterforwellbeing.com, they can find out about it. I also have a site. I also have a Facebook page. I would say that's the most normal way to find out about what I'm doing.
And one of the things that I'm also curious about is you're a rabbi.
Yep.
So you're obviously very active within the Jewish community. How do the three principles fit with the Jewish faith? Is there a fit, or do you have to sort of squeeze it a little bit to make it fit?
That's a good question. I think that I think that there's absolutely kind of a natural harmony. The principles aren't really seeking to explain more than kind of a simple paradigm about, the divine source behind life, and how that shows up in our experience and our thinking, feeling. And I think that Jewish teachings are pointing to something similar, but with a little bit of a different focus and a different, at the end of the day, I don't really find myself compelled to want to map the principles onto Judaism or vice versa. I know deeply and intuitively that there's a synergy, and I'm kind of comfortable teaching the principles. Now, what happens, I find, is that because of the way that this learning experience has been a meaningful kind of opening up one for me, I've seen things in my Jewish teachings that I hadn't necessarily seen before. And so naturally I'll end up drawing on kind of Jewish teachings and sources as I'm talking about the principles, but just because they kind of feel right and intuitively connected to me. I don't really, I guess there are some folks who sometimes wonder, well, wait a second, if you are a religious Jew and you believe that the Torah has taught you kind of a path to life, then why do you need the principles? And the truth is that there are bunches of folks in the Jewish world that don't. The Jewish teachings are really pointing us in the direction of the unknown and the divine, and the understanding that is, how that connects to it 100%. There just happens to be, I think, something that has been easy and resonant for me in learning about the principles that has definitely assisted me in being a better student of Jewish teachings. And I'm appreciative of that.
Yeah. So what next, would you say, for your work and the work, because I know you're very interested in the work in the community.
Yeah.
Here, what would you say is next? Do you have a sense of the direction of travel?
I don't know. It's funny because when we did the first conference back in 2014, I really didn't know what was going to come of it. I just knew I just knew that good things were going to come of it. I just knew that if we put it out there and we shared it in a way that people would be, you know, could be touched by, that people would find things and they would run with it, you know. And I think that's what's happened. I think that in the 2 years or so that I've been doing programming and active stuff, I see that there are, you know, there's a whole little group of people that have now got involved in training and teaching these ideas and are kind of helping others. There are educators in schools who've started to use this understanding. Well, it's already impacted their experience of the classroom and the classroom management. And I'm comfortable kind of finding what fascinates me and what I see as opportunities. You know, I just kind of feel a little bit entrepreneurial about it. I feel like I know there's so much potential for this understanding to be of help to people in the family dynamic, you know, in marriages and in relationships with children, in school settings. So I kind of am interested in seeding those things, you know, getting these ideas out, knowing that people are going to get touched, and then knowing that naturally their inclination, and once they're touched, is to want to do something with it that's going to be good. So I look forward to working, to having additional opportunities to teach and to work with individuals hopefully in an impactful way, and then simultaneously seeing that things kind of bubble out.
Yeah. So there's a kind of a sense of direction, but also being aware of an evolution or an unfolding.
An organic kind
of sort of see where it goes.
Yeah.
When's your next conference?
Well, so we have the 2-day seminar with the Pettits in May 22nd and 23rd, and the annual conference, God willing, is scheduled for January of 2017.
Great. Well, all the best with your conference in 2017. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.